You know exactly what you need to do. You might even want to do it. But in the exact moment that you sit down to start, an overwhelming internal force pulls you away. You feel an irresistible urge to check your phone, reorganize your desk, or suddenly decide now is the time to clean. Afterward, you're left with a heavy sense of guilt, not because the work was hard, but because you overruled your own intentions anyway. Most of us label this a character flaw. We call it laziness, or assume we simply lack the discipline and time management skills required to stay on track. This is why calendar apps and strict schedules rarely solve the problem. They are designed to fix a logistical error that isn't actually occurring. Professor Fusha Saroy has spent over 20 years researching this behavior, establishing that procrastination is driven by a struggle to regulate difficult emotions. We avoid tasks when they trigger feelings we don't want to inhabit, boredom, anxiety, or the quiet self-doubt that we might not be good enough to succeed. The brain prioritizes immediate emotional relief over long-term goals. It seeks a tiny instant escape from discomfort, even if that escape creates more stress later on. To break the cycle, you have to look past the schedule and deconstruct the neurological loop that keeps you trapped in avoidance. When you face a task that feels demanding or uncertain, your brain processes that challenge through its threat detection center. The nervous system fails to distinguish physical hazards from psychological discomfort, registering effort as danger. Bypassing logical execution, your brain drives toward an immediate dopamine hit, like scrolling, to soothe the threat. This offers temporary relief, but the task remains, feeling more urgent than before. This biological overreaction effectively turns everyday work into a survival scenario that your body is programmed to flee. Because of neuroplasticity, procrastination isn't just a wasted afternoon. Repeated avoidance physically alters the structure of your brain. Every time you give in to distraction, you strengthen the neural pathway for avoidance, making fleeing the task an automatic reflex. Simultaneously, the pathways responsible for discipline and sustained focus physically weaken from lack of use, making them harder to engage next time. You aren't just losing a single moment of productivity, you are training your brain to find avoidance easier in the future. High performers feel this exact biological resistance, but they rely on concrete mechanics to short-circuit the loop before the flight response takes over. The first mechanic is the 2-minute rule. By committing to just 2 minutes of work, opening a document or writing one sentence, you shrink the entry point until it no longer triggers the brain's alarm system. Once you begin, your prefrontal cortex engages, shifting your brain's state from avoidance to a drive for completion. Starting is the only part the brain is actually resisting. The second mechanic involves treating discomfort as information. Since self-criticism increases the negative emotions that drive avoidance, high performers use self-compassion to lower the perceived threat and stop the shame spiral. You can also use implementation intentions. By explicitly specifying when, where, and how you will act, you remove the ambiguity that your brain finds so aversive. Overcoming procrastination is about systematically removing the fog and friction until the starting line is small enough to bypass your brain's defenses. The third mechanic involves aligning your highest resistance tasks with your body's natural circadian rhythms. This chart shows the mid-morning window where the brain's physical capacity for self-regulation is at its strongest. High performers schedule their most intimidating work during this peak override window. Neuroplasticity works both ways. Repeated follow-through, even in 2-minute doses, physically rebuilds the discipline pathways, making focus your brain's new default response. The internal signal urging you toward distraction is an outdated alarm system, reacting to modern effort with the intensity once reserved for physical danger. Discipline is not a rare genetic trait. It is the result of learning to work with your own resistance, stacking small wins until your brain finally stops fighting you.